To commodity prices, West Texas crude is trading at $94 a barrel, Tapis crude is at about $108 a barrel, and gold is worth $1,476 an ounce. The Australian dollar is buying 103 US cents, 79 euro cents, and 67 pence sterling.
For more on finance, we're joined by Rod North, Executive Director at Bourse Communications. Rod, good morning.
Good morning.
Is that a healthy / expected / disappointing profit result from ANZ?
Well, I actually think it's a bit less than what was expected because the market was thinking that the ANZ would report about 3.13 billion. So 2.9 has come in a little bit under market expectations. So it'll be interesting to have a good look at those results. And in particular, the one thing about ANZ is they derive about 25 to 30% of their revenue from offshore. So it'll be interesting just to see whether the reason why perhaps that was down a bit lower than sort of market expectation may have resulted from that exposure that they've got there, because, you know, their figure combined with the other four is sort of going to come in at around $13 billion in profit for the half year. Bearing in mind that Commonwealth Bank has already reported, and they reported a $3.78 billion profit. So we've still got the two banks to report.
Brett Lemaitre, one of the leading analysts of the banking sector, was telling us earlier in the show the banks are tracking pretty well profit-wise at the moment, and they don't really have any great risks looking forward.
That's right, and I think what's happening is the market's really been chasing yield, because most of the banks, as he said, are yielding over 5%, and of course...
And they've cleaned up their loan books and cleaned up their
loan books. You know, there's been pretty significant cost cuttings, and, you know, dare I mention it, you know, they haven't all passed on, you know, the interest rate
You can mention that.
So that's helped to contribute to their profits, but maybe this might be the year, if we get some more cuts, that they might pass those amounts on in full, hopefully.
Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey has just confidently predicted we are not headed for a recession. Is that the market's view generally?
Well, I think that's probably a bit debatable, because you know, it doesn't help to have you know, a situation where we're now looking at, you know, having a budget deficit blowout, and I think there's, you know, considerable concern about perhaps what the Reserve Bank's going to need to do when it meets next week, because we've got a cash rate at 3%. But you know, I've been looking at some fairly interesting information coming out from groups like the Chamber of Commerce and Ernst & Young, and a lot of the reports and things, and it's still very much showing that the market's you know, still very nervous. You know, the major sort of employer groups are showing that you know, people are still not necessarily looking to employ people at the moment, and they're holding back. So I think obviously the economy is the big sort of worry at the moment, and the concern is we really don't know, and I'm not getting any confidence from listening to either sides of politics about how they're going to manage the economy perhaps in the next 12 months to 2 years. And I think we're yet to be convinced. And you know, just with your interview with Joe Hockey before, you know, we weren't getting too many answers there, I didn't think.
You might have to fly to Iceland for the next 5 months.
That might be right.
Unimpressed with both sides, because there'll be a whole lot of these views coming straight at you.
And I think we're yet to be convinced, you know, who's going to be the best economic managers of the country, you know, going forward. You know, that's still on the table for discussion, isn't it?
The persuading case is yet to be made. Always good to see you, Rod. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, lots coming up on ABC News Breakfast, but first, let's touch base with all that's happening in the world of sport. It's a very good morning to